What's up, guys? So, nobody took up any of my bet proposals, which is all right. I had two guys on YouTube who were interested. One guy said he would partake in it, but he wasn't a Cougar fan. And number two, the second guy said he would love to do the singing bet. Unfortunately, he didn't have a webcam. So, no bets because at this point, and probably for the rest of the week, this is probably the only time I'm going to have an opportunity to film a video before Thanksgiving and all the festivities that are going to happen this weekend with the holiday season upon us. So that being said, let's preview the Apple Cup. The game will be played at CenturyLink Field in Seattle. I'm expecting a good 50-50 ratio between Huskies and Cougar fans. Not to say I wouldn't expect it at Husky Stadium, but with the way that the Husky Stadium was built, the majority of the Cougar fans would be in the horseshoe section, and the majority of the Husky fans would be in the stands, creating obviously an advantage for the Huskies because sound has a tendency to travel better across sideline to sideline compared to end zone to end zone. So I think the noise could play a factor for both teams. Although the one thing that does favor the Cougars is they've already played a game at CenturyLink, so they already kind of have an idea of what to expect in terms of sound, and noise, with CenturyLink being the loudest stadium in the NFL and with it being the home of the Seahawks. So that's one thing that definitely does favor the Cougars. But as far as fans go, I think it will be a good 50-50 split between Dogs and Cougs in terms of them making cheers and noise and that type of deal. So there's that. And as a Husky fan, I am really nervous about this game. We have been regressing a lot in the second half of the season. Our defense keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Our secondary, can't play consistently. And before we lost to Oregon State, I understood the losses to Nebraska, Stanford, Oregon, and USC because all of those teams were in the top 25. And if you're going to lose, I mean, go ahead and lose to the cream of the crop. Beat the teams you're supposed to beat and lose to the top teams. Just don't do it in the playoffs because for some odd reason I have a history of teams getting to the playoffs and then they face off against the one team they can't beat and then they get drilled. That's happened throughout my life. But anyway, that being said, I mean, as far as getting 7 victories after the first half of the season, as I said in my mid-season review, the easy part of our schedule was over. We were going to have a very difficult time in the second half and experience some bumps and bruises, and we have for the most part. We did beat Arizona, which is good because that's a team that we could beat. They weren't ranked in the top 25. We became bowl eligible with that win, but ever since then we haven't won a game. And the losing streak right now includes a loss to the Oregon State Beavers. And I knew when I said in my midseason review I was scared to feel comfortable with the Oregon State Beavers because that game is there's a reason why they're called the pesky Beavers. Well, they beat us again down in Corvallis. So, but then again, the Beavers beat Washington State, so maybe they have their number against Washington State. It was teams from Washington State. I don't know. But as far as our defense, our defense is going to have to play a very good, solid game. And that being said, we need to put pressure on whoever Washington State decides to start at quarterback. I know they've had issues with injuries at the quarterback positions. They've been going from Toole to Lobestall, and I think Lobestall is going to start. I'm not sure on that, but I think he is going to start. But we need to put pressure on the quarterback. If we can do that, it's going to make our game plan a lot easier because they're already struggling with who's going to play the position. You rush him, there's another advantage for the Dogs. Keith Price, and I do know this, Keith Price will start at quarterback for the Huskies. It will not be Nick Montana. And nothing against Nick Montana, but just on a side note, I think it should be Keith Price's offensive unit and team to take against the Cougars. He's played very well. Not to say anything against Montana or anything like that, but overall, Keith Price, even though he's kind of declined a little bit with the injuries and playing tougher opponents and getting banged up because the offensive line keeps breaking down, he's played very well. He's played extremely well this season. So the fact that he's starting the biggest game of the year, that's a good thing for him and a good thing for the team. Jermaine Kearse, you have to catch the ball. If you can catch the ball, Oh man, see that's the problem is he has dropped off the planet. He has dropped so many key passes throughout this season. This is not the time to cough one up, buddy. It really is not. This is against the Cougars. You got your 7th win on the line. I mean, I think that ultimately the Huskies will go to a bowl game at 6-6. It may be a small bowl game like the Las Vegas or Emerald Bowl, but there's still that chance that they may not make it with the 6-6 record. I'd be very surprised that they wouldn't make it with the 6-6 record, but there's still that chance. You get 7 wins, you're pretty much guaranteed a bowl game for sure. And not only that, in this game, all my expectations and my hopes, they ride on this game. I've said several times throughout the season, I want 7 wins. I wouldn't say 6-6 is a disappointing, is a failed season, but I will be disappointed with 6-6 wins because if you don't win one more game than you did last year, you don't show progression. It doesn't matter how good the offense has been. It doesn't matter how okay the defense was at the beginning of the season with their whole bend but don't break style of play, I guess you could say. When they almost gave up leads to Hawaii, Eastern Washington, and Cal. But it doesn't matter. You don't win more games than you did last year. You don't show progression. End of story. there's nothing more to say about that. So it should be a fun game. I unfortunately will not be able to attend it. My season tickets did not include at CenturyLink with the alumni band this year, and unfortunately the alumni band will not be there in attendance, but that's another story, and I'm really not going to get into that. So yeah, go Dogs, and like I said, put pressure on the quarterbacks. Secondary's got to play well. Keith Price has to, if he has to run, throw the ball to the receivers, and the receivers got to catch it. One other thing I will say, Chris Polk, you have to have a big game. You got to run down those Cougars' throats. You really do. And one thing that does favor the Cougars is they got nothing to play for. They can play the spoiler role. I mean, and what other way to end your season by defeating the Huskies? I mean, but as a dog, I'm really nervous. Hopefully we can come out with the victory, and hopefully I have good things to say after the game. So, all right, well that will do it for me for this week. Go Dogs, and I'll talk to you later. I have a very uneasy feeling, but hopefully the Dogs can pull it out and get that 7th victory. Talk to y'all later.